Yeah, actually, for the longest time, they were very separate. Like, I saw my bass playing as something I really did for fun, something that also made me money more than composing, and I enjoyed it. I practiced when I need to. I wasn't really a good practicer. I didn't spend hours a day practicing, but I did practice when I need to or when a gig, requires me to. So that was, bass playing for me. It wasn't until me getting to Georgia and having a job in academia and composition that connected me with other composers who also really enjoyed playing their instruments, but still kept them separate. So my colleagues and I at UGA, University of Georgia, formed a ensemble the year after I got there and really started experimenting with ourselves as composer performers. And that was when I started playing a lot more new music, started thinking about commissioning new work for our ensemble or myself. And that's kind of where the composer performer identity started to become a thing. Now I would think that my interests in bass have shifted a little to more of the chamber ensemble or new chamber music side of things. It has also shifted more into the improvisatory world because I enjoy doing that with other people who hear sounds similarly to me.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that in orchestra, or at least in the orchestras that I played with or gigged with. You know, they're mostly classically trained, and they will play music until maybe Stravinsky, and that was it, right? And there wasn't a lot of bass music written with chamber ensembles in mind. So that was the limit of what I could do as a bass player in the usual circles that I existed in until I found my people here in Georgia. So yeah, I'm starting to, really dig this composer performer part of bass playing. And I think, it's definitely something that we're doing a lot more of right now.
Well, I really love your piece that you composed for our mutual friends in Strings and Hammers, this kind of piano trio, but instead of cello, there's a double bassist, and you wrote this piece for violin, double bass, and percussion ensemble for the McCormick percussion group several years ago. That you cast the duo of the violin and double bass as a super bass, and as soon as like I was listening to it and reading about it, I was like, this is like only a bass player could think of this brilliant idea where the bass just continues to go up through the violin kind of. So I mean, you want to talk about that a little bit? I mean, I love that piece.
Yeah. I mean, I can talk about like the bass player part first before we talk about the piece because I love that piece as well. But, growing up as a bass player, I always felt jealous of other people because they had so much repertoire. And much of that is because of the physics of the instrument, right? Like the higher instruments can play faster, they can be
Yeah.
heard over things. And that was as a basis, something that I've always wanted to rectify or fix in the ensembles and in the music. So, given the chance to, I really wanted to write like a piece where the bass was free from some of these, I would say, ghosts that has been haunting it for decades, centuries, the entire time. So when that opportunity came up, I was like, of course, I'm going to write a piece for Super Bass. Also, I had the opportunity to work with Sydney and Julia, and they're incredible, and also really interested in just like expanding what they did. So it was really, a match made in heaven. In and around that time, I was also, really interested in the idea of noise versus pitch. So when I was asked to write for percussion, I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun activity to kind of pit both of these super bass idea and just percussion being pitch versus percussion being noise versus super bass being pitch versus super bass being noise, all
Mm.
of that together. And I've tried to do that already with a prior percussion ensemble piece, Psych Rotations, where it kind of moved from different kinds of percussion sounds like woods to metals and so on. So I really wanted to do that again, but expand that idea. So that was how this piece, Memento Mori, that I wrote for McCormick Percussion Group and Julian Cini came to be. I really love that piece because there's so much that I experimented in that piece. First with the bass and the violin being a singular instrument, a singular sound, and same with the percussion quintet as an individual ensemble, but also as a super instrument. And then pitting both of those together, where the strings at times become percussionists and the percussionists at times become string like. Especially love the way it ended because it ended with two hydrophones bowing. And you're like, is this a percussion or is this a string part anymore? Nobody
Right, right.
knows. Yeah, and Bob was so into that he bought a second hydrophone for me to use. And I don't know, that I didn't know at that time that hydrophones were like really difficult to come by and also really, really expensive. I was like, oh, it's a really cool sound. And obviously, we need two of them. So I'm really, really thankful for Bob for buying a second hydrophone and believing in this kind of like, vision that I had for the end of the piece. So yeah, shout out to Bob.
Have you employed the super bass outside of this piece?
I haven't I haven't in the same way, but I have in some sketches of a bass and electronics piece because I'm really interested in writing a piece that I can take on tour and I can play
Mm.
on my own without other people. So it's in the works, but there are also a lot of other pieces in the works. Like for bass, I'm working on a set of etudes right now that is microtonal and practices our ring finger on the left hand because we don't actually use that finger for anything, but it feels like such a waste of a finger. You're wasting 25% of fingers that
Yeah,
you can
right.
use, and that just seems like a big waste, a huge waste. So that's kind of my current bass project. But in the back of my mind, and I've had sketches and earlier iterations of this piece of a bass and electronics piece that I'm working on, which I think of as an extension of this idea of a super bass.
Oh, man, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because I think of the super bass as extending upwards into the stratosphere, but in recent other bass pieces, I've been extending lowards because
Right.
no other instrument in the string family can really go that low. And as a crazy person, of course, when I bought my bass, I was like, well, there are four-string basses, but there are also five-string basses. And why not extend your instrument downward. So I actually own several five-string basses and have a duo with another person who also plays five-string bass. So we're really digging into our fifth strings and commissioning new work for two five-string basses. Why
Oh,
not?
that's awesome. And of course, when you talk about adding electronics to the mix, you can extend that like into the sub audio way below what the bass. I mean, the bass is of course is already low, but even
Hmm.
lower, which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Oh my god, like the low end of things always excite me as a bass player because no one really understands what the low end feels like. Everyone
Right.
knows what it sounds like, but you don't really know what it sounds like until you feel it. And it's difficult to explain to non-bass people that, the bass is not really heard, it's felt. Right. So, I go to these like metal shows and I really just sit there enjoying vibrations, floor vibrations more than, I mean, I enjoy the music as well, but really I'm there to be in the space and like vibrating with it, similar to how I play with my bass. Like I am my bass at the same time. It's not
Yeah.
two
Right.
separate things. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.